Federal agency CIOs and CISOs are grappling with monumental demands to modernize their IT and their security operations and establish a more agile hybrid cloud operating environment. At the same time, they're facing ever more sophisticated attacks and new mandates to develop zero trust security architecture and ultimately take a more data-centric approach to security. Yet in many instances, CISOs have roughly the same toolbox as they did 10 years ago to secure their operations. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and here to talk about why it's more important than ever to adopt state-of-the-art platforms to manage and secure data is Robert J. Carey, President, Cloudera Government Solutions, and Vice President, Cloudera Public Sector. And of course, many of our viewers know Robert as the former CIO of the US Navy and Principal Deputy CIO at the Department of Defense. Rob, thank you so much for joining us.
You bet, Wyatt. Great to be here.
Well, let me start by saying that Defense Department's recent decision to drop its JEDI single cloud provider contract and move forward with a multi-cloud contract approach says a lot about how agencies are needing to adapt to a more hybrid or multi-cloud environment. What would you say is driving agencies toward hybrid cloud environments, and how are they still able to conduct their missions reliably?
It's a great question, Wyatt. So in my mind, having lived in that building for a while, the reality is that the Defense Department and the government writ large has this environment today. It has a hybrid multi-cloud. You recall as well as I do, in 2009, Cloud First policy came out from Vivek Kundra, and everybody ran to cloud. Not everybody, I should say. People ran at cloud, but different clouds, right? And people were exploring and trying things out and invested and made workloads transfer over from legacy to cloud environments. And so the journey began. And because there was no one size fits all, we ended up with multiple size clouds, multiple vendors, and then really it brought about the, hey, I need to secure this. That brought FedRAMP. And then you had to start thinking about applications and data and workloads that would go into the cloud. And so the money that you had as a CIO or a CISO or now a CDO wasn't sufficient to move everything into one place. So you had workloads in legacy data centers, you had workloads in public clouds, and you had workloads in the latter stages, private clouds. So think of those on-prem cloud instances. So the reality of the government today is that they're in this space, and I would say they'll be in it for the foreseeable future because there is not enough resources to just simply move things into this most modern compute storage environment.
Well, what do you see as the primary challenge now that CIOs and CISOs are facing in managing and protecting data in a hybrid or multi-cloud environment?
So I think the challenge, and you know as well as I do, it's cyber. It's really the security of having, there's two things going on here. The security of this non-homogeneous environment is both a boon and a bane. The boon is that it's more difficult to compromise it in its entirety. The bane is it's much more complex to manage. So tools that exist today, including some that we make, allow you to have a command and control of data in disparate environments, which is very helpful. And then bringing it back into the SOC or the NOC and getting a single pane of glass view of that data and allowing you to analyze it and gain insights from that data that's in disparate locations is very powerful. So to wrap a coherent security architecture around the disparate views is very helpful for the CISOs and the CIOs today. And so that's really I think the number one struggle. The second struggle is really going to be, do I know what data I have? Do I know who's accessing it? Back to cyber and identity management. And can I in fact control that and manage it?
Well, I think you'd agree. We've seen agencies really trying to shift their focus towards a more data-centric approach rather than a network-centric security or perimeter security model. How do agencies need to adjust their data management strategies to accommodate that, especially in this hybrid environment?
So another great question. The data strategies, really, first thing is, do you have one? Do you actually understand where your data is, how it relates to your mission, How is it prioritized? Is it mission essential? Is it just some other thing that we work on? And yeah, we have to do that. But to understand data and applications as they support the mission of your department or agency is huge. And then how do I want to move that into the future? How do I want to get that data? In the old days, we used to call that the authoritative data. How do I make sure that's where it's supposed to be? And then how do I link the right people to access it at the times that we expect it has to be used? So that's really becomes the challenge that they have to think through, right? It's non-trivial to really mesh the agency's mission to its data strategy, right? It's not just data architectures, but it is, where is it? How is it protected? How old is it? What platforms on it? What language is it written in? Those kinds of things all mesh together. And then you think about it over the next 3 or 4 years and try to line up with where is technology going? Because the tools that existed, for example, when JEDI was conceived, are not the tools that exist today, right? They're much more mature and much more capable. And so you have to take advantage of those technologies as you move into the future.
Well, another challenge that agencies continue to face, I think you'd agree, especially as they try to identify anomalous behavior on their networks, is separating the data wheat from the data chaff. And how do you recommend that agencies accomplish that in a hybrid and often dynamic environment?
Well, again, there are tools that exist today that you can examine your data in the context of the mission, and you can determine from queries what is the, I'll say the authoritative data because I'm old, but what is the data that's most meaningful and trusted moving into the future? So again, there is some data that you don't move everything into cloud. You move the things that you need into cloud. So you have to do an examination of your environment at a pretty grand level of detail to be able to then discern what's coming forward and what's not. And that's the data wheat from the data chaff, right? And now we can then look at that smaller subset of very important mission critical data, and I can protect it. I can provide the right level of identity and access management controls around it to enable when something goes wrong, can that still support the mission, yes or no? And so once I put this all together, I think I have a path to move into the future with confidence that the data is tied to the applications is my mission.
And then lastly, one other dimension that agencies are also facing is the need to make data more easily ingested and usable for artificial intelligence, for example, and automation. What's your advice on how to agencies for doing that at scale in a hybrid environment?
So again, first of all, you need to have tools that can look across your enterprise and integrate various data sets from the beginning of their data lifecycle to the end. So once you can ingest them, clean it, cleanse it, align it, and then prep the data for analysis, for analytics. Maybe it's using AI, maybe it's using machine learning, maybe a combination of both. But this whole management of the data lifecycle is absolutely crucial here, so that as you're bringing it in, you're able to consume it and use it to derive insights downstream, right? And if you don't manage that, then AI and ML doesn't do much for you unless the data has been cleansed and aligned and able to be consumed by the analytic engine to then provide that insight. So to me, this hybrid environment, once you look at it, you connect each of these pieces that exist today, because the fact of the matter is, I think every federal agency probably has some flavor of cloud, whether it's public or private or both, and some flavor of the old-fashioned data center, right? And so I need to connect those up, and I can draw the data in, I can run the analytics on it, clean it, and I can provide those forward-looking insights. But if I don't have the ability to connect, I have a problem. If I don't have the ability to align and cleanse the data and organize the data, I have a problem. So those tools are required, and they are available today to then take you into the next few years.
All great points. Well, Rob, Carey, thank you so much for joining us and really sharing a lot of your insights on the state of data and data management in the federal government.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.